Hey y'all, it me, coming from um, finally warm Santa Cruz County with the actually hot Google Slides, as I do every week. Santa Cruz County, Santa Cruz County's #1 Google Slides live stream. Today we have got more Artemidorus. More Artemidorus, not this time about dreams that I've gotten from readers, although I do have quite a backlog of those. Please keep sending them in, because I love to analyze your dreams according to those old-fashioned patterns. But today, I'm going to talk about a dream that I have, and maybe you have had too. Now, there are a lot of things that I dreamed about in my life, but there's one that I dream about more than I used to since I got to California, and that is ants. Ants, little guys, little ant guys, or I guess they're lady ants. Most ants are ladies. Ants, just ants everywhere. Ants, a constant affliction in my waking life and also in my sleep. Ants haunt my dreams. The worst thing that happens, the worst of all, is when ants get in my ear, when ants are in my ear. And I dream of that from time to time. Got the ants in my ear. And I wonder, what does that mean? And Artemidorus so often has answers. He has two answers. Dreaming of ants in your ear means two things. Well, for most people, it's a bad sign. It means death. Ants in your ears means death, because ants are children of the earth. They live in the earth, and unto the earth they shall return. In that respect, they're just like dead bodies. And if you do die, ants will soon be eating your brain via your ear. So, not a good omen to dream of ants. But luckily there is an exception for sophists. For sophists, the dream of ants in your ears means something different and much better. Because you remember, as I keep saying during these podcasts, status matters for dream interpretation. Artemidorus says, who you are matters for what your dream means. And sophists get off easy when it comes to dreaming of ants in their ears. Now, what is a sophist, anyway? You may think you know. Because sophists are generically, I think most people think of them as those bozos that Plato is always dunking on. People who merely manipulate language and who are interested in winning arguments rather than discovering the truth, who charge for their instruction, just villains of the most base and vile sort. The term gets somewhat revalued. I mean, it may always have been a little bit differently valued than Plato values it, but by the time of the Second Sophistic, which is broadly speaking a movement of the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, the term sophist has been totally revalued, such that sophists are not bozos, but actually rock stars. Sophists are people who have fame across the Roman Empire. There's names of people who are famous across the empire. They give live performances that draw huge crowds, just speaking on whatever topics, pretending to be various historical figures, giving speeches on that basis. These very, very glamorous performers, and Artemidorus hates those guys. We may have time to touch on this later. I mentioned it during my introductory talk on Artemidorus. He does not like the fancy sophists. But there's another kind of sophist that also looms large against the background of this period, and that's the sophist, the kind of sophist you might call a professor. Sophist who teaches. Sophists that teach rhetoric, but also philosophy and ethics, history, all kinds of subjects are taught professionally by sophists who do charge quite substantial fees, but who are represented in the sources that do talk about them, Aulus Gellius's Attic Nights being probably the most loquacious, are represented as being people who genuinely care about the moral development of their students. They may be charging for their time in their company, but They genuinely care about making sure that people turn into good human beings. You see these sophists in Gellius, people like Favorinus or Taurus, and with them you get very much this kind of Dead Poets Society vibe. Like everybody's sharing in an appreciation of this culture, Greco-Roman culture, that at this point in history is already kind of classical. So they're classics professors. And that's probably the kind of sophist that Artemidorus means here, because, as he says in his analysis of this dream, for sophists, ants in your ear, those bugs are students. They're all going to class in your ear. They're all attending class in your ear. And that means you're going to get those big enrollments, giant class size, those huge lecture courses that Janet Napolitano loves to see. So lucky me, right? I'm a classics professor. I'm a sophist. That means I get plenty of people in seats, and maybe the university continues to employ me. But taking a step back from my personal situation, one might be a little bit curious about this dream analysis. Why are students ants, and why are they holding class in your ear? It's a weird place to hold class, even during, say, a campus-wide strike or pandemic. I don't think that one would necessarily think of holding class in somebody's ear. Well, so two questions, and I'm not really sure about the answer to the first one. Why ants? Except that ants are anarchic. As Aristotle says, and this is something that gets repeated in the tradition of natural history in the ancient world, ants are anarchists. They do not have leaders. They are difficult to govern, much like children, much like students. Possibly. But we can say something more about the second question. How is the ear a classroom? What does that mean? On the basis of sort of what ears signify generally in Artemidorus, because he has quite a long section about what it means to have various dreams about ears. In Book 1 of Dream Interpretation on Oneirocriticon, which is about parts of the body. So there's a big section on ears in there. For him, basically, ears are obedience. Ears signify obedience. For instance, if you dream of having a whole bunch of ears all over you, if you dream of being all ears, that means you're going to acquire a kid or a wife or a slave, because those are three categories of fundamentally obedient people. If you're a free male citizen, these are three categories of people you can be sure will obey you or expect to obey you. So ears signify those types of people. For you, you're going to get married, you're going to have a kid, you're going to acquire a slave. Well, what if you're a slave, though? Then, if you grow a lot of ears, that means you're going to continue to be a slave for a long time. You're going to be stuck obeying other people for as many years as there are ears, or something to that effect. Worth noting again that Artemidorus does seem to be aiming at a broad kind of range of different audiences, social cross-section here. He does provide dream interpretations for slaves, as well as for free people, the kind of people you'd expect to be able to pay for somebody to interpret their dreams. Well, so ears mean obedience, but obedience means two different things, right? It's a two-way street. It's a double-sided relationship. You can other people can obey you, but it can also be the case that you obey others. And ears mean both in dreams. In real life, ears are just ears. Well, which kind of obedience does it mean for sophists? Does the ear as a classroom signify that students will obey the teacher, or does it suggest that the teacher will obey the students? My guess is that the sophist is the one who has to obey. The expectation is that the sophist will obey. That's what the ear classroom signifies. Because, as I said, ants are anarchic. Nobody rules ants. They do not obey anyone. And the distinction between good versus bad sophists in the world of Artemidorus seems to be one between people who use manipulative rhetoric to get other people to do things and people who serve others via instruction. So when you dream of ants in your ear, and you're a sophist, you're a classics professor, it means you're going to have a lot of paying students, but it also is the march of 1,000 masters, each carrying a little whip to make you do what they want. Actually, I treasure my students. I very much appreciate your attendance in my gross little ear classroom. Well, thanks for allowing me to indulge in a bit of dream interpretation of my own. I'll get back to dealing with viewer dreams next week. In the meanwhile, everybody stay calm and cool and eat right, and you're going to have some of those good, meaningful dreams. Bye!